Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Waterloo Council meeting for Monday, January the 22nd, 2024. I'd like to take a moment and read a territorial acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, the land on which we are broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Council, at the beginning of this meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all of our decisions. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, Council. Councillor Vasic.
Thank you. I meant to flag this ahead of time, and I forget the reference number. It might be 201 capital projects, but if it comes up, it's just the stadium stuff with Laurier. And
Right, okay.
Yeah, so if it doesn't come up, that's fine.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other declarations, Council? Seeing none, I want to welcome everyone here today, and we are going to be starting with our presentation from our community services team. And I know that Mr. Maven, that you're with us, and welcome today. I wanted to let you know that my plan is that we'll receive the business plan and then allow council to ask questions of Mr. Dykstra and his team, and then I'm going to call you up as a delegation. I hope that that meets with your expectations. Okay, great. Okay, so I think I'll just turn it over now to you, Mr. Dykstra. Welcome, and welcome to your team.
Yes, thank you, Chair Freeman and Council. Community Services is pleased to provide our business plan overview for 2024 to 2026, as will be provided momentarily by each individual director. Our initiatives have a strong link to our new strategic plan, while we recognize community-facing focus of the work that we are engaged in. Every day and every hour, our team is connecting with the community. For example, their work focuses on program delivery in the city's recreation facilities. We ensure those facilities, along with parks and green spaces, are safe and cared for. We celebrate our past and foster community building in our neighborhoods. We support the safety of those neighborhoods and city properties. As you are aware, we are serving the community across the city in so many areas, but today we wish to share our key business plan initiatives for the upcoming years. I invite Jim Bowman, Director of Community Program and Outreach Services, to lead off our updates. Jim?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, members of council, members of the community, and fellow staff. I'm immensely proud to be part of this team who are dedicated to supporting community building, promoting health and well-being, and improving community involvement and providing programs and visitor service that enhance the lives of residents, students, and visitors. One of the initiatives for this period is to enhance inclusive programs and services. Enhancing inclusive programs in order to meet the challenging needs of our community, staff plan to implement innovative programs and expand and enhance existing inclusion programs for the benefit of the overall community. Our CPOS team, or Community Program and Outreach Services team, will be working in collaboration with the city's READY team on this initiative. Our next initiative is to improve access to services for older adults. Grant funding, especially through the federal government, will allow the expansion of home support services for low-income, newcomer, or otherwise vulnerable seniors. Services include free outdoor maintenance, i.e. as well as snow removal and yard work, transportation, and service navigation for qualifying seniors. This will create an increased sense of belonging and connection to our community. Our next initiative is the museum relocation. Moving to a larger location will empower the City of Waterloo Museum to grow, educate, and diversify programming and exhibit offerings to better serve the community. Ultimately, moving to a larger space will empower the museum to grow, diversify our program, and offers, through collaboration, a better service to our community and to those who visit the City of Waterloo. Our next initiative will be the foundation of all of our work. It's entitled Community Space, Recreation and Leisure Trends and Policy Refresh. What we hope to do is enrich, grow, and contribute to the changing needs and provide direction from the community to transform our programs and services into the future. Going in the same order, the development for our impacts to the community, the development of an inclusion services model will advance initiatives and provide support services to enable a more equitable and meaningful access for participation. This initiative will be developed that will reflect the changing community demographics and interests, aligning with the strategic plan of equity, inclusion, and community-centered principles. As noted, the federal grant money or impact to the services for older adults will allow for the expansion of these services. It is imperative that we continue to plan in a sustainable way to ensure Waterloo provides a future-ready community for all, and starting with our senior population. This will enable our senior population to feel belong and connect for all individuals, which aligns with our principles of community-centered and supporting strong and livable communities. The museum relocation impact. Museum programming and services support and welcome all members of the community and visitors telling stories of our diverse community. Moving the museum into the uptown will bring a multitude of benefits. The city museum is a cornerstone that contributes to education, community development, and economic growth, and the enrichment of our community and local area. Museum staff are currently collaborating with both school boards in bringing virtual education programs for students, and are also collaborating with the University of Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University for a future expo called Building Black Communities Together. The principle of operational excellence, equity, and inclusion will be the hallmark of this impact. Our last initiative related to our refresh. In 2012, the city completed a 10-year recreation and leisure plan. This refresh of this will be instrumental in having a strong model of community development for providing healthy, connected, vibrant people and neighborhoods. In addition, staff are currently undertaking an indoor community space plan in which it will provide a roadmap of transformational change in how to use existing space and plan for future-based growth and changes of our community. I'd like to turn over to Jill Fleming, our Director of Recreation Services. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim, and good afternoon, councils and members of the public. Recreation Services has a number of key initiatives from 2024 to 2026, and I'll spend the next few minutes highlighting these initiatives and their impact to our community. Kicking off, we have the implementation of the recommendations of the Recreation and Leisure Policy Refresh. This initiative aligns with and supports the work produced by community programming and outreach services and facility design and management services divisions. It includes operationalizing the recommendations from the guiding documents such as the Recreation Program Review, the Indoor Community Space Plan, the Recreation Plan, and associated renewed policies that pertain to the programs, facilities, and services that Recreation Service provides to the Waterloo community. Secondly, we will renew and upgrade aging assets, considering greenhouse gas targets. We are continually renewing, reviewing, enhancing and replacing equipment and amenities within our recreation facilities to ensure we are a safe location to gather. When looking at repairing or replacing this equipment, we will apply an environmental lens where practical to choose the best solution. Thirdly, we will support sport tourism and the Waterloo region sport hosting initiatives. The City of Waterloo collaborates with local municipalities, townships, and post-secondary institutions, along with Explore Waterloo Region, to leverage opportunities for sport tourism to the region to attract large-scale sporting events. In addition to attracting, securing, and servicing these large-scale events, this joint approach is key to strategic facility development, additional assets, and improved service delivery. And our last key initiative for this time frame is the online and digital customer service improvement. The corporate-wide digital services strategy prioritizes improving the digital customer service experience and online user experience. Recreation Services uses a number of online platforms such as ActiveNet and Pickup Hub for program registration, and we are looking at ways to make these more functional for our customers. The community impacts of these initiatives include updating the policies reflecting the new strategic priorities and better serving equity-deserving groups. This means that community spaces and programs will better meet the needs of our growing and changing community, including opportunities for a more diverse range of populations and a greater sense of belonging built through sport and recreation. One example of a new program being offered is a women-only swim. Another impact is providing safe and functional facilities while being environmentally responsible. As our assets age, it's important to repair and replace and upgrade our equipment to ensure that our patrons are safe. And if we can do that while maintaining an environmental responsible lens, it's even better. And another example of that is the recent RFP for an electric ice resurfacer. Third, that we will improve the ability to attract large-scale sporting events to the city. Sport tourism contributes significantly to the local economy. In 2022 and 2023, large sporting scales contributed to over $48 million in economic impact and provided many other benefits to the local sport community and beyond. And lastly, with the online digital services, we will have more timely and streamlined access to information. Implementing products like Active Connect and Active Hub will enable customers to have information quicker and will provide key data to assist us in making our program decisions. Thank you, and I will now pass it over to Robin Milne, Director of Parks, Forestry, and Cemetery Services.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. I'm pleased to present the key initiatives for the 2024-2026 budget cycle for Parks, Forestry, and Cemetery Services. The first initiative is divisional infrastructure renewal. This will include artificial turf replacement at Rim Park, which will include the two artificial turf sport pitches there, sport field lighting at Bechtel Park, including the ball diamond and the soccer pitch, wayfinding signage throughout our park system, annual playground replacement throughout the city, and paths, trails, and roadways. The second initiative is the Urban Forest Management Strategy. This project started in 2023, and moving into 2024, we will move into community engagement. This project will look to explore strategies to maintain our existing canopy and opportunities to expand Waterloo's tree canopy. The strategy will contain a tree equity component and a strong emphasis on making space for trees through the planning and development process. The third initiative, Park Development and Revitalization, the focus of this project will be addressing the impact of growth through urban intensification, specifically reimagining public space through public engagement. This will include parks such as St. Moritz and Lexington, new to park development at Bridgeport and Margaret, two leash-free dog parks, one in the east and one in the west, and working with the READY team to identify a location for an Indigenous gathering space within the city. The last initiative I'll speak of is the Waterloo Park Master Plan update. This involves a review of the successes and outstanding items of the current plan, strong community engagement, And the plan will address evolving park trends and will respond to climate change, reconciliation, equity, accessibility, diversity, inclusion, and the pressures of urban intensification. The community impact from these key initiatives include modern, accessible, and inclusive park. Oh, nope. There we go, thank you. The community impact from these key initiatives include modern, accessible, and inclusive park infrastructure to support an enhanced sense of belonging in Waterloo. The urban forest management strategy will preserve and enhance the city's urban forest canopy. Park development and revitalization will bring new and reimagined public spaces to address our growing city. And the Waterloo Master Plan update will involve community engagement and the development of an integrated plan for how Waterloo Park will best serve the future needs of this community. And I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Van Udenham from FDMS.
Thanks, Robin. It's my pleasure to be here to talk about the key initiatives in this budget cycle related to facility design and management services. The first is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions at city-owned facilities. We know that this is a key strategic priority for this council to focus on environmental sustainability and to take bold climate action. We also know that city facilities account for nearly 3/4 of all corporate greenhouse gas emissions. And so you'll see this action reflected in a couple key capital projects, which I'll highlight. Reference 225 transformational projects, as well as reference 226, the green building policy implementation. The second key initiative is the AMCC and McCormick Branch Library renovation and renewal. Council will recall we were here last week to introduce that project, and really, it's about investing in our existing infrastructure, focusing where we can on accessibility and greenhouse gas emissions, as well as looking for new opportunities to expand programming. It's also about leveraging and aligning our dollars with the $3 million federal grant, which we've already secured. And I'll highlight reference 222, AMCC, which is investing the $7.3 million in this budget cycle towards this initiative. Number 3 is facility accessibility and inclusion improvements. And this is all about creating a welcoming and inclusive facilities for all. And we understand that this is also a key priority. I would draw your attention to reference 130, which is investing nearly $2 million in this budget cycle, the 3-year budget cycle, towards this key initiative. And lastly, service delivery, innovation, and efficiency. We're really looking to align with Council's strategic plan around innovation and future readiness. There's over $360 million worth of capital projects in this budget cycle, represented by 275 individual projects. And I'll draw your attention to reference 237, which is an investment in some capital project management software, initiated by FDMS, but really has broad applications to any division here at the city that implements capital work, a really key initiative. As well as reference 239, Maximo implementation, which is a continued investment in Maximo software, which has really embedded itself as a key component of how not just FDMS, but many divisions here at the city do day-to-day business. In terms of the community impact, reducing greenhouse gas emissions is all about showing that environmental leadership and really focusing on our 2030 target, as well as our recently adopted net zero target by 2050. The AMCC project is focused on transformational change at city facilities, meaning greenhouse gas reduction, infrastructure renewal, as well as new programming opportunities. Accessibility and inclusion is about removing physical barriers that prevent some community members from fully accessing facilities or enjoying the programs within. And service delivery, innovation, and efficiency is all about leveraging technology to increase our efficiency and continue looking at our best practices and how we can improve the work that we do. Waterloo is known as a leader in innovation and technology, and we're reflecting that in the way that we do business. And with that, I will turn it over to Deputy Van Salm to talk about fire rescue services.
Thank you, Kevin. Members of Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Chief Hebditch, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. Fire Rescue Services will be working on 4 key initiatives. Oh, we're already there. There you go. First initiative is the implementation of the Fire Master Plan and Community Risk Assessment. Council approved the Fire Master Plan 2023-2032 on November 27, 2023. The Fire Master Plan provides strategic framework and recommendations for council to determine safety levels in the city for the next 10 years. Implementation of the recommendations made in the Fire Master Plan, which includes increasing staffing and resource levels, are aimed to reduce safety and increase response capacity. The second initiative is records and data management for enhanced planning. This initiative pertains to the use of in-house software to generate data reports that can be used in decision-making regarding operations aimed at increasing efficiency and response capabilities. The third initiative is the Ontario Firefighter Certification. The legislation regarding firefighter certification came into force in 2022 and aims at ensuring that firefighters are certified at a minimum to the corresponding certification standard by 2026. The last initiative pertains to the first line of defense, public education. We aim to innovate within our public education program with the goal to reach the diverse populations in our community, including older adults and people with English as an additional language. Further, we will enhance our tactical planning program, which is crucial to ensure a safe and effective response by our crews. The community impact the initiatives will have are listed here. We will see an expanded deployment of resources and specialized equipment such as the squad unit. Through training, technical maintenance, and mechanical services, we will see our response capacities increase. And lastly, we will reach enhanced public and firefighter safety through the three lines of defense: public education, enforcement through the fire code, and emergency response. Next up is Nicole Papke, Director of Municipal Enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Van Salm. Good afternoon, Chair Freeman, Mayor McCabe, Council, members of the community, and staff. On behalf of Municipal Enforcement Services, I would like to provide you with a brief overview of our business plan, key initiatives, and community impacts. Some of our key initiatives are education and public awareness to help bring understanding and clarity to the issues. Community well-being and bylaw enhancements with a commitment to public safety and bylaw improvement. And finally, technology enhancements for efficiency and customer service. Municipal enforcement continually strives to bring clarity and understanding related to city bylaws through our approach of engagement and education. This supports the high quality of life for all residents and overall community vibrancy. Attendance at community events and neighborhood associations will continue. Our officers are also committed to their own journey of learning, whether through the help of the READY team or their own professional development. Community well-being through engagement, education, and mediation, along with planned bylaw enhancements, are also within our initiatives. We endeavor to present Council with proposed updates for your consideration to our rental housing bylaw with research and discussion on renovation and tenant concerns, a noise bylaw review, and proposed changes to our vacant building bylaw in collaboration with internal city partners, to name a few. And finally, continuous improvement and technology enhancements for an improved customer experience. Such enhancements include improvements to our internal iNotice system and portal, along with collaboration with the external after-hours call center project. We look forward to continuing to serve our community and council, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Director, for those great initiatives, and thank you to the extended team here, a number of them here today who have provided assistance on the business plan, operating budget, and capital budget. A couple of items to further update Council on related to our menu items. Just want to go through those. Facility and booking and active net clerk. This is a staff request to support our bookings across our facilities, recreation and parks being the key focus. This will help to grow the offerings and support enhanced customer service related to the ActiveNet initiatives. M5, a winter maintenance, sidewalk maintenance item to advance snow clearing on regional roads within Zone 1. That is an item noted as S5, and that is in 2020 6 currently, the intention of this menu item is to advance that service request from 24 to 26. M8 is the increased support for community initiatives. This request includes increased funding for affiliate groups, new sports and recreation grants, as well as a museum tech. Moving on further in the list, also related to winter sidewalk maintenance, there is a provision of adding snow clearing in all school zones. As a reminder to council, this option was presented in June 2023 with respect to the sidewalk winter control report, and this is an item that could be advanced as an option in addition to S3, S4, and S5 of the staff proposed budget. M10A is the associated capital equipment to advance that initiative. Another winter control sidewalk initiative is M14, and this advances sidewalk snow clearing along regional roads and the remainder zones of the city. Again, this is in addition to the staff proposed requests of S3, S4, and S5. And here again, you see item 14A being the addition of the capital equipment associated with that request. A final item just related to some savings or deferred initiatives is related to M16, the fire in-camera item. This in-camera item, if activated by council on budget day, would defer the noted portion of the staff tabled increase related to S2, fire master plan expansion until the next budget cycle. However, this will still maintain the recommended service levels that we have in the next several years. So with that, I wish to thank council's indulgence in our overview, and we're now at an opportunity for questions for both myself and the directors at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dykstra. Council, I would looking for questions for Mr. Dykstra and his team. Councillor Rowe?
Through you, Chair. I do have some questions. If I could start with Jim or Mark, that's fine as well.
Come on up, Jim.
Thank you. Hold on one second. I have a question about the enhanced inclusive services and programs, and that would be capital S11. And Jim, I'm wondering if you can just give me a little bit more information about the EDI program coordinator position, what that looks like, the benefits of that, and then the risks as well if that doesn't come forward.
Absolutely. Through you, Chair Freeman. Since accessibility legislation came into effect in 2001, we have enhanced our knowledge and we have a commitment to creating a more accessible community, which impacts service delivery demand models. As such, in 2018, for some time we've had a relationship with a model with our other municipality on inclusion. We did a review of that and found that we needed to either enhance, enrich, and move towards a model that would be suitable for both cities to bring on board for the future. To reflect the changing demographics, numbers of people that are required, and to better serve the community. So as such, in this budget cycle, you have before you a request for a coordinator that will begin to examine how our city can embark upon a more enriching, engaging, and enhancing of the services we currently have. And this coordinator will work with our READY team on the delivery of programs to enhance that particular service based on our strategic plan.
Thank you. And then, Jim, are there risks associated then to the programming and service delivery if that position is not filled?
Yeah, I think that it would be fair to say that If we don't advance this, we will continue to have a model that is not future-ready. It's a model that will reflect a desire to continue to work just within a tight framework of inclusion. We want to expand, we want to enhance, we want to enrich. And so the risk would be the inability for us to move forward on some of the expectations of the community, as well as bringing forth a more wholesome and fulsome program and service.
I have one more question, Chair, if that's okay, within this item. Thank you. I'm also wondering if you can just give a little bit more information about Adventure for Change and the funding requests. So what I'm curious about there is if there are other groups that are receiving similar funding to provide programming and what that looks like.
Yes, thank you for those questions. Through you, Chair Freeman. We currently have a relationship and service agreement with the House of Friendship to deliver recreational programs for our Sunnydale community. It's really a wonderful program that enriches that particular community. We also have a relationship with Campino, or formerly known as Corizon, in which we also provide funding to the amount of $40,000 and $50,000 for the House of Friendship. I failed to mention that. And we recognize that Adventure for Change is doing some marvelous work in our community. For those who are serving what we would consider some marginalized groups, the commitment of the staff at Adventure for Change is incredible. They provide wonderful programs, soccer, basketball, sewing, and just to visit their site is just a real inspiration. So we want to work with them to provide them with what we would consider an equitable amount of funding. So this year we've put in the budget of $40,000, of which they've never received before from us. So we want to be able to bring a more comprehensive and equitable relationship with Adventure for Change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I do have one more question, but I also want to be mindful that other people have questions, so I can
We'll
come back
allow
to it.
3 questions per counselor to start, and then I'll circle back about. So go ahead with your 3rd question.
Thank you. One more question, Jim. I'm curious just about the museum relocation and sort of what the positives are. You touched on that in your presentation, but also the risks then to the museum facility in general and the community opportunities if that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Again, through you, Councilor Freeman. The museum relocation is really a part of our strategic initiative that we had with the museum about 10 years ago. At the time we did our strategy, it was felt that we needed to have a place in the uptown where people could visit very easily. So that was part of the incentive. When we identified a space that could accommodate this, the relocation means working with the library very closely because our staff work with them quite extensively. In addition to that, we recognize that the site that we are looking at is owned by the city of Waterloo. And it's undergoing some change to it in terms of a mold reduction, a new roof in this spring, we hope. And so in order to keep that building in full operation, we would like to advance a plan to relocate our museum. It is seen as a positive influence to our community. In addition to that, I would say that the opportunity exists that we will be able to receive or at least advance some funding through grants to make this a positive relocation aspect. It is also seen that our museum currently is at Constable Mall is a little bit, it's outlived its usage. It's not big enough. And we want to advance programming beyond what we're doing today. So not doing this work would be somewhat putting us behind a little bit. We are currently have a feasibility study in place that acknowledges some of the positives of a possible relocation. We would bring all this information back to council in the future for council's approval, but we want to advance some creative thinking of how to relocate our museum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next questions, council. Mayor McCabe?
Sorry, yes, I have a few questions. Thanks very much to Mark and the team for providing these updates. It's really great work that's happening throughout the department. And, just want to say thanks in advance for that. I had a couple of questions about accessibility and inclusion services. One of them was around our facility-based improvements that are being planned, and I know we talked about some of them last week, but I was wondering, in addition to the inside of facilities, what improvements might be being considered through this budget, through your upcoming plans this year for outdoor spaces, like to make them more accessible, like parks, sidewalks, wayfinding, things like that. I was also wondering, just on the theme of inclusion, if you think this year there's going to be capacity for adding additional programs, especially over the summer breaks for children and youth with special needs.
So a number of areas involved with that, but I know I'll kick it off. On the accessibility, you heard from the team, or you will hear more on the accessibility audits and where we're going with that. Great work on the indoors. Director Van Oudegem noted that within his scope. And I know within parks as well, they're looking at built form improvements related to accessibility and improving those standards. And as they redesign and reconstruct projects up to the latest standards is the goal and the target, and they're providing that in terms of services. So hopefully there's clarity there. If you need further, then we'll call the director up here in a moment. With regard to inclusion for summer programming, and that's within the scope of Jim Bowman's work in trying to advance those initiatives through what was just discussed about S11 and providing additional coordination, not just at a coordinator level, but a summer camp program and delivery level, the staff that are one-on-one with individuals. That too is within the budget request, and working hard to fulfill those requirements and needs within the community.
Thank you very much. And I was just curious as well about there was $2.4 million in an accessibility retrofit from the federal government. Are you aware of, are there any provincial funding programs out there that support municipalities in working to achieve our AODA goals or requirements?
Yes, through the chair to the mayor, yes. Not specific coming to mind. I'll look to the team if there's anything there, but anything that is available, working with finance, we look for those, we apply for those where we are eligible, and we'll take advantage of those. So anything on a provincial level that does come available or is, we apply, and we look to see how we can leverage quite often our dollars to match or contribute to their initiative, and then that way we get a greater benefit from that. So just broader response, we're looking for any and every grant that supports accessibility, working with the READY team and our director teams and staff here.
Right, great, yeah. I mean, we'll certainly through our, through the city's pre-budget, provincial pre-budget submission, be asking the province for that and reminding them of the obligations we're trying to reach, and hoping that they will match what we're doing and as well as what the federal government's doing. Just my third question on this round then, just on the online and digital customer service improvements, is what you were outlining, is that in addition to the voice program that was just brought into service?
Yes, come on up, Jillian, and you can speak a little bit more to how you're activating that within recreation, but just a theme across the divisions and within the departments. I think council will see in the public, like each area, the focus on digital improvements within their business planning. You hear from facilities, design and management, municipal enforcement, and how they're supporting the customers, fire rescue service too, and how they want to improve their call response, all part of digital improvements that the teams are focusing on. So I'll let Jillian speak specifically to that one item.
Through you, Chair to Mayor. So it is in addition to the voice. So it's part of the ActiveNet platform. They have different modules available. So Active Connect is a module that enables us to do registration via tablets. We already have tablets within recreation services, so we're just going to be activating them in different ways. And so fitness instructors can look at their lists right within the fitness class and have up-to-date live information. Active Hub is an analysis that lets us look at and pivot the data that we have in order to help us make more informed programming and marketing decisions. You're welcome.
Okay, great. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. This question is directly about facilities and our planning process, both in terms of GHG reductions, but also I'm just sort of contemplating the potential impacts for climate change on our existing facilities. And the two things that I want to ask about are that aspect of outdoor air quality impacting our HVAC system. So I had experienced that in Canmore, Alberta over the summer, where the facility closes because the smoke overwhelms the HVAC capacities. And secondly is the movement to indoor because of extreme heat, and whether we're factoring that into our facilities and our approach to, improving our HVAC and undergoing our GHG facility upgrades.
Yes, through you, Chair Freeman to Councillor Wright. So those are really good questions. I think obviously last summer with the wildfires and things like that, we directly experienced some air quality concerns in Waterloo region. One of the things I will say is that we are going through an extensive renewal of our HVAC equipment right now. In a lot of instances because they're reaching the end of their life, but also because there's opportunities from a greenhouse gas perspective. I think to your question, an interesting sort of alignment here is through the pandemic, we had to look at the filtration of our HVAC equipment, and we've made some upgrades to that. For example, moving to like MERV 13 filters as an example, and that would sort of address your comment as well as looking at the filtration of that air. So we're already sort of implementing some of that work, and I think to your point, there's probably more that could be considered as we start to fundamentally change over these HVAC systems within our facilities.
Okay, thank you for that. That's actually the only question I had. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hanmer and then Councillor Vasek. Did I see your hand? Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Freeman, through you. I have three questions, Commissioner Dykstra, in there for three different people, I think. The first one, I want to come back and build on the question that Councillor Rowe had raised about Adventure for Change and the monies that were allocated for the other three, House of Friendship and Camino. Just a little, if you could clarify, the 40,000 that we're giving to, recommended for Adventure for Change, is it to go to the same populations that House of Friendship and Camino serve, or are Camino and House of Friendship serving different populations?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Freeman. The populations are crossovers and quite similar. But Adventure for Change itself provides a broader scope of services and programs. They bring a number of our community members into their site on Albert Street. So the answer would be it's a little of each for the most part, but they are serving a very vulnerable population and ethnic base group.
Okay, Thank you for that. I do agree they have a very unique population that they serve, and there are lots of resources. I would hope that as the three work together, there isn't a duplication of services, that it's new programming that's brought into place.
Yeah, they do work together. I've met with them a number of times, but they definitely will be providing a broader service and a need for, based on the Venture for Change work.
Different types of services.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you for that. My next question is for Jillian. Thank you, Ms. Fleming.
Yes.
Intrigued by the sport tourism, and just to pursue it a little bit more, I think many of my council colleagues are feeling, and we know the general public is too, that we've got some significant increases happening within our budget this year, and so we've got to look at different things, which includes also opportunities for revenue generation, potentially. And so I'm intrigued a little bit with the sport tourism and what that's going to potentially bring to our city, one thing, and then the flip side of that is what do we need to do to ready our facilities to be able to bring advanced sports tourism here?
Sure, thank you, through you, Chair Freeman. So I think, and I might have to ask you just to clarify that first question so I can hit the nail on the head. Are you looking for information of what's to come on bid opportunities, or if you could just clarify that first question for me?
No, just to expand on what kinds of things we may be considering, and then to be able to do that, what do we need, how do we have to be ready?
Sure. So for 2024, we do have some bids out. Some of it is confidential, and so we're not able to say, but other things we can say. So I can talk about the ones we've secured. So we do have a Canadian Frisbee Ultimate Championships coming in 2024. And then we also have Ontario Volleyball for 2024 and 2025. Well, I think where I'll go and what I'll dovetail onto your second question is what are the things that we have to think about. So one of them that won't be a surprise is the technology and the reliable internet and the live streaming and all that. And that kind of goes to that number 4 about just being online and digital ready, because as we know, sport also relies on digital technology. So that's one of them. Other items will just be to know what facilities we need within the region generally to host. So working with the sport hosting office, doing different feasibility studies to determine where we need to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years from a facility point of view, and working with our post-secondary institutions to partner with them to enable us to serve the community and the student body in a collaborative way is a great example of where we need to be.
Lots of different opportunity, and I guess the obvious risk is if we're not able to do some of these things, we won't be able to attract some of the activities and events that we want to have.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I think that's it for me for right now.
Thank you. Councillor Vasek.
Thanks, through you, Chair. My 2 questions, one for fire services, one for Jim, M8. My question about fire services is there's increased staff requests and increased capital equipment requests. And what we heard last week was there's just, and doing the 2, I know that you're working on aligning the 2 when they come. One of the things we heard last week and we've been hearing about for some time is that there's just procurement delays. So I'm curious how you're going to kind of be mindful and strategic about some of the challenges with the procurement delays and aligning those with staff and what opportunities there are there, but also what are the sort of challenges that you're mitigating against?
Yes, thank you for the question. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Vasek. So we're really trying to align the staffing resources with the procurement. As you mentioned, there is a lot of delays when it comes to getting fire pumpers at this time. So what used to take about 9 months is now taking about 2 years, and for an aerial it's actually 3 years. So last year we actually asked for an enhanced budget release by council for the replacement or the new pumper. So we're having that in the process, and we're asking for 4 staff members. Now those 4 staff members for this year can be used for different apparatus, including staffing a pumper with 5 instead of 4 people, or using the squat unit that we currently have. So we're trying to be really flexible and innovative while we're aligning those two specific resources, apparatus, and staff members.
Okay, great. You're thinking about it, which is good, great. Thank you. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah. Yes, please, Jim.
I thought it was only 3 questions.
That was just one question, just a preamble. Councillor Mark, Commissioner Dykstra mentioned M8 and outlined that there are some component parts, but I was wondering if you can expand on what the component parts are that make up M8, which is the increased support for community initiatives. It's for different initiatives, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay.
Menu item number 8, yes.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, yes. I have them here. The one is for the technician of the museum. That was, these are in no particular order. That, as we begin to enhance or expand our museum services, we see in the future possibility of a technician to help guide us with more programs and services. That was one of them. The second one was some money for the foundational grants for sports groups. Council approved a change in our grant process back in last year. And so just to keep up with the times and costs going forward to rent space, so we're asking for an increase on that particular menu item for that foundational group, for foundational grants for that group. The third one was to just general cash grants for groups coming forward based on need. We're receiving a lot of requests for space, sometimes free because of the affordability of it and so forth. So that was that menu item. And the last one was for neighborhood initiatives based on the neighborhood strategy that we have in place in order for us to begin to move towards a more comprehensive working relationship with our neighborhoods. There was 4 of them in there, I believe.
Great, thanks. That's all I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Councillor Roach.
Through you, Chair Freeman. I only have one question, and it's directed to Fire Rescue Services. Fire Rescue Services represents a very significant part of our budget. There's no doubt Waterloo's changing, and we need a lot more firefighters. This theme, or the theme of my question was brought up during the presentation of the Fire Master Plan. It's acknowledged that the fire service is not really reflective of the Waterloo community. Is the Ready team involved in the fire rescue recruitment efforts? And if so, can you tell us the scope of that involvement? And if not, why not?
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. Yes, indeed, the Ready team is involved in a great extent, actually. So, as you know, and I think the Chief spoke to that the last time here too, about the camp that we do every year, where the Ready team is actually really much involved. We are looking at our hiring practices as well and talking to the Ready team about how we can include a more diverse pool of candidates, which is really a challenge at this time. We have reached out also to the universities and the colleges, see if we can bring some of our promotional work to that community. But to answer your question, it's short, yes, they are involved.
Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Any other questions, Councillor Roach? Councillor Bodley.
Thank you, through your Chair Freeman. Sorry, Director Van Soem, I ask you again to come up. My question is about budget item B12, which is around cost increases related to dispatch. And so my understanding is that this is a service that we work with the City of Kitchener on. We contract them out on it, which is probably a really good example of partnership amongst the municipalities here in the region to find cost efficiencies on projects where appropriate. So I appreciate that that's the route that we have gone here. I guess my question is, since these costs are increasing starting in 2025 and 2026, I note that this really wasn't something that we discussed or reviewed as part of our fire master plan review that was just recently approved. And so I'm curious if there has been any conversation about whether it is still the most efficient way for us to dispatch and fire communications across the region for the city of Waterloo, and whether or not there are any contemplations about bringing it in-house. Anything you could maybe sort of provide to us as color on that topic, I would appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for the question, through you, Chair. The dispatch center has actually been dispatching all 7 municipalities since pretty much about 2021. Cambridge joined, North Dumfries joined later on. So the dispatch is really, it's a municipal-wide dispatch center. There has been some conversations about amalgamating with the police services and paramedic services, but those discussions are still ongoing. As for a discussion around whether or not we should do it in-house, those discussions haven't been part of the fire master plan. It seems to be, and this is before my time, so excuse me, that the most cost efficient way of doing it is through one centralized dispatch center.
Any other questions, Council? Councilor Rowe.
Through you, Chair. I do have a question for Parks. Robin, if I could. I'm just curious, from the operating budget, B27 and B48, there's 2 positions being requested. So I just wondered if you could just give us an understanding of what the position needs are and what the risks are if they're not filled. And that is the permanent parks manager and the cemetery operator.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Rowe. So the B27, which is the permanent parks manager position, so this position will carry forward some of the identified capital projects in there, is heavily involved in the operational needs of the department, and also will advance our plans, our strategies, our master plans that are key to this department. One of them obviously being the urban forest management strategy. So the risk of not hiring this position is a delay in the rollout of capital projects, operational delays on operational decision making, and then those plans and strategies that council has adopted over the years not advancing. In terms of B48, the cemetery operator position, so in 2017, the cemetery expanded by 7 acres. This is the Parkview Cemetery. And at that time, there was minimal staff complement to care for that additional 7 acres. As the properties matured and the trees have matured and we've put in strip foundations and monuments, the care and the maintenance of that additional 7 acres has obviously become more complex, and the need for that position has been necessitated. In addition to that, it will support the operation of the crematorium. And so without the success of that position being approved, then there'd be a reduction in service potentially, or the reliance on overtime through the existing staff that are there.
Thank you.
Councillor Bodley.
Sorry, Councillor Rowe's question sparked a question for me. Actually, that's actually maybe a higher level question for Mark to maybe speak on behalf of all of the commissioners, perhaps. So when I look at B27, my understanding of that is that we are transitioning someone from a contract position to a full-time position. And so I guess my question here is around the risk around having too many contracted employees in positions that we know are ongoing full-time needs. And particularly as sort of relates to talent attraction and retention within the city. I'm wondering if maybe you could speak to that particular element of the risk of not advancing this position to a full-time position.
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor, you've started my thought process and the response is, the risk, the retention, there is challenges there if they can obtain full-time employment in another jurisdiction with another employer, municipal employer or related employer. We have seen that. We want to avoid that, and I think that's across not just this division, but across the department I've seen and across the city I'm seeing well as part of the CMT team. Obligations too as well under, our agreements with our labor teams too. We need to be mindful of that as well, and that's part of us, proposing and advancing and creating a staffing plan that's reflective here and historically and in the future. All those decisions speak to those positions coming forward. Not sure if Brad has anything to add from a finance end. I think we're good on that front, so trust that meets the needed response. Thank you.
Mayor McCabe?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just a couple questions for Parks again. Parks and Cemetery. Well, comment on the cemeteries. I was really pleased in the fall to learn about the composting efforts that the team at cemeteries are doing, and they gave me a gift over the holiday season with some dirt that they had made from the leaf composting. So it was really great just to see how proud they were of, and the initiative that they took to do this, because they told me that it was saving 3 to 4 dump truck fulls of soil. So it's great to see, some of those initiatives too. So my thanks to the team on that. I was curious about the Indigenous gathering space that's listed, and I'm wondering if you could provide an update on the potential location, timelines, who's involved with these discussions. I assume our Indigenous advisor, Brian Hill, but who else in the community are involved with that, and if the potential location, timelines, et cetera.
For sure. So yeah, sorry, through the chair to you, Mayor McCabe. So for sure, we're working with the Ready team. We're working with Brian Hill. Right now, we're exploring an opportunity at the University of Waterloo. We're just in initial talks with the university to have a gathering space. That was the space that the Ready team had selected, and so staff are working with the Ready team and having discussions with the University of Waterloo to explore that as an idea. There's nothing firm has been settled on, and so those talks will advance and currently are advancing, and we'll carry those conversations on. And once we have kind of some more details, I guess, if you will, then we'll bring those back to council for discussion.
Okay. But the timeline sometime this year?
That is our hope.
Hopefully?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Just with the Waterloo Park master planning, because there's been a lot of work that's happened over the past few years in Waterloo Park with the upgrade to Silver Lake and, the west side area and, the ball diamonds that were improved and the basketball court that's going in and I think the parking lot over on that side. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of work.
Sure.
So I'm just curious what more you're kind of looking for from the park. And then my other question is just in that review, are you including the zoo as part of that review when you're looking at the master planning strategy?
Certainly, through the chair to you, Mayor McCabe. Yeah, great question. It's an exciting project for staff and for the community. We're looking at just to kind of the start of your question, we're looking at the new shoreline and the new diamonds kind of as the bookends to the park. And so now we're really looking at everything in between and how pedestrian movement functions in the park, how vehicle traffic functions and works through the park. Events are very a popular request at Waterloo Park, and what role do events play in the park and frequency and type of events. In terms of the EB Farmstead, we'll be looking at that as previously committed at the start of this year. Once we get out of budget, staff will be looking at the EB Farmstead and what options are available to council for the farmstead. The hope is that we can kind of get a clear direction prior to moving into the Waterloo Park Master Plan on the farmstead, so that the discussions, the exciting discussions that we'll have about Waterloo Park don't get bogged down by the EB farmstead. And so really great conversations to come out in the future. I think, you know, we'll be looking obviously to the community, the council and the community for input, and that will steer, you know, the infrastructure and the needs of the park is really going to come from the community. But the, you know, the existing plan has a festival space that I'm sure we'll have some conversations around. There's lots of conversation around the Milk Lane, so we're hoping to flush all those conversations as we go through that master plan, and just get a clear direction so that when we're putting infrastructure in place, that it's there and it's going to support the future infrastructure that we're planning for.
Great, thank you. Did you say Milk Lane?
So as to my understanding,
That's not one of my questions, by the way. I just don't know.
To my understanding, what's been passed down to me is the asphalt. It's probably about a 4 or 5 meter asphalt laneway that is the perimeter of the park that connects Spring Street to. I'm gapping on Yonge Street. That's referred to as the Milk Lane.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Learn something new every day. Thank you for that. And I just had another question about facilities and just some of the funding of the facility upgrades that are being proposed. I was just wondering if you could kind of outline for us again as a reminder, like what's in there that's tax-based funded, what's coming from DCs for some of the major projects, that is, like Albert McCormick and some of the things you've proposed. What's maybe coming from the federal government for some of the retrofit and GHG reduction grants, and what role the CURF plays as well? If you could kind of just broad strokes on that, that would be helpful.
Sure. Through Chair Freeman to the Mayor, and I may rely on Mr. Witzel here a little bit for some of the financial background, but I would say to start with, I think one of the things we're really optimistic about and hopeful for is that we will be successful in securing a large federal grant. We do have a $25 million grant currently in, as council's aware, really geared towards transformational projects at Rim Park, Albert McCormick, and Moses Springer, really to help launch us towards our 2030 greenhouse gas target. So that would be a really big win, I think, is if we could secure one of these grants successfully. And then in terms of the funding makeup for Albert McCormick, I'll let Brad speak to that, but we do have another $3 million federal grant already secured for that, and then Brad can speak to the other funding sources in that project.
Thank you, Kevin. Through you, Chair Freeman, to the Mayor's question. So in regards to the Albert McCormick expansion and library, so reference 222, that was discussed last Monday. So all in total, that's about a $10.3 million project. From city sources, we have CRF, library expansion, and CURF. So approximately 77% of that is city funded, with 23% coming from the federal grant that Kevin alluded to. So that's under the Green Inclusive Community Building Grant Phase 1. The other major project that we would like to highlight is reference 225. So that's the Facility Transformational Change Project, which is over $10 million. So currently, that project would be 100% city funded at the $10 million amount. But as Kevin alluded to, really what we're hoping to do there is leverage that into a much larger transformational change project targeting those 3 main facilities as part of that same grant stream, but under the Phase 2 intake. And so if that's successful, that grant is currently pending. It's been submitted, but we don't know the outcome. If that's successful, we would be able to leverage that $10 million into $20 million approximately of federal funding for a $35 million total investment in our facilities. So as I mentioned on December 11th, if that grant is not successful, what staff would then look to do is leverage this investment into another grant opportunity over 2024, 2025, depending what comes available. And then if we're not able to secure grant funds, then we'd have to have the conversation about, is it time to embark on that as a standalone city project, which would be 100% funded by the city. But our goal is really to leverage that investment, and I think the commitment is there that council's ready to put forward our share, but it needs to be leveraged through the federal and provincial partners to really make that return on investment. So hopefully that answers your question, but in both cases, it's contingent on the grant, whether or not it's leveraged into other partner funding.
Right, thank you. We'll keep our fingers crossed for that, but when you say some of it's city-funded, you're also talking development charges like that were previously collected.
So to you, Mayor, in regards to these two particular projects, they are not development charge funded, but I guess you could make the correlation that the library expansion fund has been kind of built up over time, and thanks in large part to the DCs that we were able to secure on the East Side Branch Library. So the city was planning to fund more of that project, but fortunately we were able to leverage DCs on that expansion project, and so that's where the library expansion fund is in kind of a better place than we even anticipated, which helps facilitate the McCormick project. So, and then there's other facility projects that obviously do have their DC component, but these two in particular, no DCs at this time.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Councillor Rowe.
Through you, Chair. Kevin, I have one more question, sorry. I'm wondering about number 232, the Heritage Building Conservation Program. And if you could just expand on that a little bit and explain sort of what that looks like for our heritage buildings in the city.
Yes, absolutely. So historically, what I'll say is that there's been intermittent funding set aside for heritage conservation of our city facilities. And so without a dedicated funding source, the reality is that those types of projects are in the same competition as, for example, replacing a failed rooftop unit at a community center. And so practically what happens is because there's not dedicated funding for heritage buildings, it becomes very difficult to prioritize that work over something that's immediately pressing at City Hall or a rec facility or service center. And so one of the changes we're proposing in this budget is really set aside a sustainable funding stream for these heritage facilities in order to properly invest in them. And some examples of what that might be, we know that the Button Factory, as an example, needs windows, sills repaired, it needs masonry repairs, the front steps have to be repaired. Carnegie Library needs a new roof and masonry repairs. The Heritage Green buildings across the road have some shoring needs and roofing needs. And so all of those types of projects would be funded through this initiative and would really allow us to preserve these historic buildings, which we're required to do, but also potentially down the road allow us to look at adaptive reuse or more public use of some of these facilities, which they're currently not in a state that we could often allow that to happen.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, Council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I think this one is probably a combination of Robin and Kevin. But it has to do with our urban forestry master plan, and again, our sports facilities or outdoor facilities and where we're planning for shade. I know that in Waterloo Park, where we've had the refurbishment of the ball fields, a lot of tree planting has taken place there, and it creates obviously shade for spectators, lowers the temperature overall for outdoor sports. Where else is that contemplated at this point in our strategy?
So through the chair to you, Councillor Wright, the urban forest management strategy plan is probably about at the midpoint of that plan. So we anticipate having a very strategic approach to where we do tree planting. What we're looking at right now in terms of the urban tree canopy is, I think our focus has shifted from how can we increase the canopy to how do we protect the existing canopy that we have, or at least maintain the percentage that we have. And I think that's going to be the real challenge in front of us. So we're going to be looking at all opportunities, not just on publicly owned lands that the City of Waterloo controls, but looking at partnerships with school boards or entering into conversations with the region, working with the REAP group to work with private homeowners to get trees in the ground across the city. Again, I think with the targets that we have for growth in the city, it's going to be a really big challenge to maintain the canopy, and it's going to be kind of looking at every partnership, every municipal piece of land that we can to get trees in the ground.
And just to follow up, so on the facility side, so this might be more Kevin's purview here, but, are we working towards including tree planting around facilities where the buildings have high sun exposure or heat exposure on a particular side?
You want to take that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would say that is something that we are looking at and would do more of. So as you correctly note, a deciduous tree is sometimes the best source of protection for the facade of a facility. It provides shade in the summer, and then when it drops its leaves, it allows that good sunlight to come in and warm that building during the winter months. So those are all part of strategies that we do look at when it comes to sort of the microenvironment around a facility. And I think, related to climate adaptation and things like that going forward, those strategies become more and more important. So definitely really, really good comment, and is for sure on the table as we look at not only existing facilities, but new ones we bring online.
Other questions, council? So I had a few questions. First off, I did want to take a moment to say to you, Mr. Dykstra, that I recognize how hard your team works in terms of service delivery that is directly received by the citizens in Waterloo, and the interactions that I know our bylaw team have had with people who live unsheltered, and the willingness on behalf of the team to think about things around inclusivity where we can help those that maybe haven't used our facilities in the past, and trying to create programs and places and spaces for people is really impressive. And I know that a lot of times the changes that are made seem to create barriers for some users and opportunities for others, and so balancing that has been really well done by your team.
Thank you.
One of my questions more broadly is that when we undertook some very large park designs, so Mary Ellen Park, Alexandria Park, certainly the messages that we heard here at council was that those park designs would be able to be used at other parks, so we wouldn't have to pay yet again for a park design. And so I'm trying to understand whether or not we have done that, because it seems to me that there could be some opportunity to reuse designs that we have in new places and spaces as we refurbish parks.
You want to start that off, Robin, just based on where the program's at? So, yeah.
And really the question's the same too for water features, splash pads, because again, there's pretty strong direction that came from this table to say, please come up with designs that can be reused so that we don't have to keep paying for that.
Sure. Through the chair to yourself. Yes, so that there is some challenges there just to take to one design and move it from one park to another based on, one obviously being topography and lot fabric. But some of the simple designs, say for example, a play structure, we can design a play structure and use that same design and move it to another park. The challenges with that is that it is nice to have some different options within the city. So there's a balance, but you can change out colors, you can change out simple features. With the splash pads, the design element to the splash pad isn't a really critical part of the cost as much as the installation and the servicing that goes into those features. I think maybe on the facility sides of that, so say for example the bathrooms that support the splash pads, those can be, I'll use the word cookie cutter designs. We can take that bathroom facility and just replicate it at each splash pad that we use. Tennis courts, action sports, so pickleball courts, tennis courts, basketball courts, we can take those designs, and as long as the soils will allow it, we can typically use the same design. However, there can be circumstances where you run into different soils and it may require you to alter the design that you've gone with. So this is in my position, this is the first time I'm hearing this direction, so I can say that I'm hearing it, it's understood. I'll have the conversation with design staff, and we'll carry that forward. I'm sure that they're aware of that direction from council, and moving forward, we'll look at projects through that lens, and I think there is opportunities where we can use it, but again, I would stress that sometimes there is limitations just due to the physical site or the soils or where the servicing comes on the property or pedestrian flow.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you're new to the position. But I did want to reiterate that because we are hearing through this budget process from the broader citizenry that they want us to be innovative in terms of finding ways in which we can reduce our expenditures, and I would really like to see us think about these things.
If I can offer, Councillor, historically, and hearing that direction and moving through the course of procurement on items, designs or a item, seeing how do we use what we've learned and continue to implement that. That is a strategy that I see the directors and the staff use. Is it the mechanical design behind a facility? Is it the spec for a vehicle? Is it the service provided in our fire rescue service area? So that efficiency piece, I can say, is being driven by the team, and we're looking for, hey, we've learned how to do this best, let's start implementing in various areas of the city.
Yeah, and I also would, on the procurement front, like, one of the things that we spoke about at one point was undertaking a procurement for multiple sites in one go, so that we weren't paying twice for a procurement process, that things were happening simultaneously, shall we say. Because I know that came up with regard to splash pads, for example, creating one on the east side and one on the west side, kind of exactly the same, design. You had whatever 20-foot square, whatever, space in both places. Like, I know that was part of the thought process in terms of finding locations. But more broadly, I think it also applies to other things. Like, we're hearing pretty loud and clear from folks, like, as we look at the library and the updates to Albert McCormick, are there elements of the design that were completed at Eastside that have been a great success that can be, kind of copy and pasted into the footprint at Albert McCormick? Like, we cannot go over budget on these. We can't be budgeting on, Class D estimates that are plus or minus 50%. And so I'm making this comment because I know that your team undertakes a lot of design, development, and procurement as it relates to long-term facility investments. And, we're hearing pretty loud and clear from the citizens that they need us to really think a little bit differently about how we do that process. So I kind of wanted to share that.
Thank you, noted and received, and
Yeah.
we'll work with our teams.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. But I do want to recognize the achievements of your team over the last 3 years. It's been extraordinary. You built a library, you built the ARC, you built places and spaces for the Waterloo band to house their instruments. You've created a neighborhood environment in Waterloo that is really making change, where neighbors are coming together to say what they hope to see change in their neighborhood, and they're making it happen. And I'm so impressed with that, because we used to always hear about the red tape and how the city just kept saying no to neighborhoods, and we've really moved the bar on that. And your team's just done an incredible job on that. So although my comments might seem kind of heavy-handed, they also come recognizing that your team has achieved a lot. The new crematorium is a big undertaking. And so the next big challenge will be how we continue to afford our fire services, because they're a really important part of the city.
Noted, thanks for the feedback. A general philosophy too that we hold to, design is only as good as it can be maintained. That comes into the approach. How do we look at that future care for that facility? How does that get built into the decision making too? So yes, on the same track. Yeah, thank you for the feedback as well and the work accomplished by the team. Great team here and across the city to support these initiatives.
Yep, thanks very much. Okay, I think that your team is officially out of the hot seat. But I would hope that you might have a few minutes to stay and hear Mr. Maven's presentation, because I think his presentation's probably a more citywide commentary as opposed to just the one business plan. So, and with that introduction, I'm happy to welcome back my friend and Mr. Maven. I appreciate your interest in the budget process, Bob, and value the time that you've spent to look at it.
Thank you for that, Chair Freeman. Don't know most of you people. Okay, start off. Anyway, hello, Chair Freeman, and who I do know. You're the last surviving member of my council term. And to the Waterloo staff, who are incredible. I want to thank also to the Clerk's Department, and especially to Rook, for all the assistance that I was given. So thank you for that. Today, I don't know why, but I'm so darn nervous in front of you. I've made presentations to Regional Council, I don't know how many times, and their committees. And I've made presentations to City of Waterloo many times, been here many times. I've made presentations to City of Toronto committees many times, and council. So it's rather strange that I feel that, but my hands are actually shaking. My wife was warning me about that. Maybe it's because I'm here today, not as an ex-staff member, subject matter expert, if you will, but as a ex-councillor. So I'm going to be talking to you as a peer. Sometimes, as Councillor Freeman well knows, and the staff definitely know, I'm not politically correct. And if I have no means of offending you, that's not my intent. But it happens from time to time. This is the budget that we're speaking to today. And you'll see a number of different measures in here. The base budget, as I understand it, and it can change, things fluctuate, I know that. So you're looking at the first line, and that's a reasonable budget. That's what I would have expected this budget to be. I can understand the infrastructure renewal investment. That's long-term planning. I see some value in that. Providing the new services outlined in our strategic plan. I'll have more comments on the strat plan a little bit later, but that's where somehow or another, I'm hoping the council is going to be a look at that list and say, okay, we have to prioritize some things. We have to stage some things. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but I can hope for it. This is the proposed tax increase for 2024, excuse me, I'm still nervous, to 2026, 22.7%. The last time the City of Waterloo had an increase that high was due to the Rim Park increase. Just wanted to point that out. The increase in Rim Park was 22.2, so this one's even more. One of the strat plan issues is, the guiding principle is operational excellence. We provide fiscally responsible, exceptional service. By the way, this is my favorite group in the whole city. No offense to anybody over there. But this group is a fun group. They're great to work with. But we provide fiscally responsible, exceptional service. Waterloo's known for exceptional service. The customer service is beyond this. I came back to work for the City of Waterloo not because of the money. Believe me, I took a pay cut to come back. But I came here because the people are fantastic, and they're really great, and they still are. Those people used to make me look good. That's a tough job. Anyway, this is part of the strat plan, the guiding principles. But strat plan is a lot of things. But first and foremost, it's a plan. It's not written in stone. I see it referenced everywhere in the budget documents as this is the justification for it, because it's in the strat plan. That's not it. That's not the way it works. Excuse me, I'm ahead of my notes here now. I jumped ahead a little bit. It took me 12 years to accomplish my goal of renovating 2.5 bath washrooms. My original goal was 9 years, but I adjusted my strat plan to make it 12 years because that's the way the financing worked out. City Council works the same way as that. Strat plan is a guide. It's great for goal congruence for the whole organization. I understand that. But it doesn't mean that you have to accomplish everything that's in the plan. You have to make priorities. That's why you guys get paid the big bucks, let's face it. I'm showing you this because, first of all, it's one of my favorite charts. And it shows every one of these is a story. Take a look at this, and you'll see every time that there's a large increase in property taxes, there's a big valley. That's a taxpayer reacting to you. There is a story behind it, and I can tell you some of them, but I don't have enough time. By the way, Chair Freeman, I hope you're generous and your clock is slow.
It's not too slow.
I'm sorry to hear that. This is a more time-friendly. The last chart showed from '73, when the current city of Waterloo was formed after regionalization. So there was a lot of regional type expenses in there. This is from 1990. So we're a mature city. And this shows where we are. We had a large increase in 1990. Again, you see the reaction from the taxpayer. They brought in a council that cut taxes and brought them down to 0 increases. Rim Park, the same story. Now, one thing I will mention, because it's rather pertinent to the budget and the rest of my presentation. In this time period, right here, Station 4, Fire Station 4 was built. 20 firefighters and a new station. You don't see a big lump like you've got here in 2000 and, I'm sorry, Deputy Chief. I warned her before that it wouldn't be, this would be a fire-related presentation. And here's what you've got. Rim Park, 22.2%. 2024 to 2026, if it stands, if you let it stand, 22.7%. Now, at Rim Park, at the budget presentation I attended, there was about 70 people there in person. Rim Park, there was 1,000 people the first night. That was at the Rim Park facility upstairs. There were 600 people at the rec complex the next session, and there's 300 people the next session after that. That was for less increase than council is dealing with right now. So community will react. I don't know what's happening today. Maybe it's because of the YouTube channel, which really drives me crazy. But here's the charts showing inflation compared to property tax increases. I have flatlined the inflation projection, as we discussed before, Nicole. Taking the current projection for 2024 and flatlining and hoping that inflation is under control, and use that as a basis. That's how far this proposal is over inflation. That's going to be important later on when I show presentations of net income growth in this area. Gotta get my coordination down. This is what's something that the City of Waterloo excels at, finding and saving efficiencies. This is an extract from the budget report, so you've already seen that. there's a former CEO, and he used to have a continuous improvement. And again, Nicole, I think I saw continuous improvement in your presentation, and I thought that was great. I didn't think I was going to see it today, to be honest. But he used to say that the city's mission was not to provide the services, but to make sure that the city itself had those. Let me go back and read this. I'm telling you, I'm still nervous. The former CEO used to say the city's mission was to make sure the required service provided, not to make sure the city itself provided the service. We don't have to do it. Crematorium is an example. Sorry, Robin. But now first of all, the city of Kitchener followed us into the business. They find it quite lucrative too. But now the private sector is getting into it. Now maybe it's time to us to rethink it. Maybe we can be a leader in extracting ourselves from the business. I don't know. It's not my business. I'm just an ex-councillor asking the question. Here are past examples of efficiencies in action. City public transit. This was years ago. But the City of Waterloo purchased transit service and trolley at that time and a bus service from the City of Kitchener. Now the region provides all traffic services and bus services. Fire dispatch, I heard it mentioned before, we merged it with the City of Kitchener for savings at that time. And not even just savings, but efficiencies as well. Garbage collection. I think we were the first to send the garbage collection up to the region. And then now the region has, in fact, assumed all garbage collection and, in fact, has privatized that service. So it's not provided by municipal employees any longer. And, of course, there's the recent hydrant. Oh, crapes, now can't even talk. The recent hydro merger. This clock thing is getting to me, Chair Freeman. The one thing I want to say on here is that continuous improvement comes in different examples. Thinking out of the box comes in different examples. Ex-mayor, the late Marjorie Carroll, was on regional council. The regional council decided to want to put a low-income housing project in the region. I don't know how many of you know this. Again, this is a history lesson, and maybe I'm just too old. But Mayor Carroll at the time volunteered at the region to be the location. City of Waterloo was the location for the first low-income housing project. And how did she do that? All she did was bring the developers together, the region together, planners together, and contributed $13,000 of regional development charges, city development charges. And that's all we contributed. And we had the first one. Being the first isn't always the best, but I thought that was an excellent example of thinking outside the box. Okay. What other city services might be more efficient if merged or operated in conjunction with other bodies? That includes privatization. I don't know them all. You know the services better than I do. I haven't kept track. Honestly, until I saw that tax increase, I haven't really watched too much City of Waterloo. It really hurt me to go back and read the strat plan, read budget reports. But the rationalization of fire station locations is something the City of Kitchener did 15, 20 years ago. Again, history, you can learn from it. They saved many, many dollars by just rationalizing the locations. Simple enough approach. Take the city, divide it into quads, and there's where you want your stations. Now, I'm not a firefighter, I'm not a fire expert, but in simple councillor terms, that's the way it should be approached, I think. Now, what you got, Station 4, top right-hand corner, up here. It really protects the golf course, acres of playgrounds, and some green space. So there's a walking trail and floodplain back there. Is that the best location for Station 4? Or should it be over here? Station 3 always mesmerized me. It's that little building on Northfield Drive, and it's like, what is it doing there? How could they squeeze it into that property and make it a fire station? But they did. Is the coverage the greatest? No, at the time it created a triangle. Actually, it was down here. Station 2 used to be down on Westmount. But Station 3, maybe that no longer belongs there. It serves the farmer's market better than it does the rest of Waterloo. Maybe it belongs down here. Building a fire station, say it costs $20 million. I don't know what it costs these days. Back then it cost 10 to 12. I think Station 4 may have been a little cheaper than that because we own the land. If we move Station 3, $20 million, forget about the fact that there's furniture and fixtures that are already in place that could be reused. And the equipment's already there, so you don't have to do that. And so are the firefighters, 20 of them. 4 platoons, 4 platoon leaders. And make that your first move. You just save $2 million in wages a year. And you can debenture that. I understand that, sorry, Philippa, but I read another finance report. And I saw that debenturing is now, you change the rules for 20 years debentures. We can do that in some cases. I'm sorry, Philippa, that wasn't fair to you. Through you, Chair Freeman, I'm sorry, I'm out of practice. Philippa, did we just change the debenturing process to allow for 20-year debentures? Okay. I'm going to assume that we can do 20-year debentures now. I'm sorry to put you in that spot, Philippa. And that means that for $20 million over 20 years, it's $500,000 a year, compared to spending $2 million on additional salary for no matter what is in the report in the fire master plan, you've added an extra station. You can call it an extension of one, but you've added the equivalent of equipment and firefighters for an extra station. And Station 4 should probably be more in this general area than in that area.
Okay, my friend, I've been pretty lenient. You're going to have to wrap up.
Yeah, we got some good ones coming. Got some really good ones. And I'll skip all these because yeah, I'll control my frustration. I'll control it.
But it's just you're 4 minutes over, so I kind of need you to wrap it.
Okay. Anyhow, in the future, and this takes some planning, Station 2 can move it there. This doesn't happen in 1 year. You can do this how many years you want, over time you want it. You can cause it. This is what you ended up with. You get this coverage right here. And you don't have to build a 5th fire station, however you want to manage that, expansion of a station or whatever. Other options worth exploring. I've been a good customer of Waterloo Fire Rescue. I can tell you they're the first in the scene every time. They've been to our place 5 or 6 times, 7 times over the last 2 years. They're always the first one here. So why not put a paramedic on them? That would make more sense to me than having to wait for the paramedics to get there. Because they get there a little bit later, and they actually go over the same things the firefighter has already done to me. Sometimes I'm unconscious, so I don't really know. And one of the things, it's a dichotomy of, you got firefighters who have equipment that might go to 25 stories, but somehow or another, council has allowed the height standards to move past 25 stories. I don't know what's driving that, probably developers, but I'm going to skip that one. Here's the ones I wanted to make sure council saw. This is from the Fraser Institute, and this is where they're comparing Canada's average net income growth after inflation with other cities, communities in Ontario. This is from 2008 to 2019. I've highlighted the arrow where Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge metropolitan area. There's the net income growth, 0.04 over those 11 years. And you're not seeing tax increases, 0.04 over 11 years. I can tell you it's an awful lot more than that. This is the Fraser Institute again. This is the real median income. They've adjusted all this, a 2023 update. Kitchener, Waterloo are doing worse. We're now in the negative as far as income. Net income after inflation in the average household. We're below the Ontario average, we're below the Canadian average. Our property taxes are not there. Whether it's here, whether it's at the region, they're not there. This is from the BMA. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with the BMA consulting
This
report.
needs to be your last slide, Bob.
It is my last slide.
Okay.
Oh, there's got one more.
No.
No? Okay. If you want me to quit right now, honestly, Chair Freeman, I will.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Bob, is it okay if council has any questions?
Chair Freeman, and now I'm getting nasty. I'm sorry. I like you. You're really fantastic. The best counselor I have ever worked with, staff or council. But I'm not going to be cut off and then being asked to stand here and answer questions.
I understand. Okay. There's consent motion, council, with 2 items on it. Did anyone want to pull either of those items from the consent agenda? Do I have a mover for the consent agenda? Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We're on to staff reports. And the 2023 facility accessibility upgrade, I understand that we have a presentation from Ms. Ross.
No, I think it's fine. Good afternoon, Chair Freeman, Mayor, and members of council. Happy to be here this afternoon to talk about the 2023 facility accessibility update. Next slide, please. Just to impress upon you the importance of accessibility in this community, Stats Canada estimates that 20% of the population in Waterloo region over the age of 15 lives with a disability, and that's not specifically physical disability. It could be intellectual disability, it could be a sensory disability, it could be many disabilities. And layer on top of that other elements of equity deserving identities, and you have some significant needs in the community. I wanted to just let you know that the new multi-year accessibility plan is in development, and a draft of that will be coming to council in the spring. It is being completed in connection to the reconciliation and equity portion of the READY strategy that's coming forward. And finally, another highlight connected to the multi-year accessibility plan, which has been thoroughly discussed at GRAC at a number of meetings, is that they have confirmed the prioritization of the built environment improvements as critical to reducing negative lived experiences here in this community. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today's presentation is just about the facility accessibility. It's not focusing on the other aspects of my portfolio and the work of other areas of the city. And this is in connection to the request for budget that we've asked for. So some highlights for things that have happened in 2023, and this is with the significant technical support of the new construction coordinator and the FDMS teammates. There were 5 new automated door openers installed at the Harper branch of the Waterloo Public Library. These were add-ons to what was included, what was shared in the audits from last year. The Harper branch was not audited in the original set of audits. We also added 1 new automated door opener at Rim Park, and that was completed in December in response to a complaint that we received from the community. A visitor to the facility was trapped inside the arena and unable to leave. So it was important to act on that quickly, and we were able to do so with the assistance of the construction coordinator. There was regrading of the lower entrance to the crematorium, so now folks with disabilities are more able to pay their last respects to folks as they celebrate the life of people that have departed. There were some Braille buttons added to the main branch of the Waterloo Public Library, and this was a concern that was brought forward by staff from the WPL. We also added a labeling system for easier drop-off and pickup identification and safety at 4 entrances of WMRC. We did this in response to some concerns of folks from the day program being dropped off at WMRC as opposed to the community pavilion and the safety associated with that. We've updated some listening systems for Rim Park and here at City Hall, and did some reconfiguration of automatic door openers at WMRC that were outstanding from the construction. Next slide, please. To touch on a couple of others here, the universal autonomous washroom, we've spent a significant amount of time making sure that that facility will have good accessibility features for installation at the Heritage Green Parquet very soon. And then we've been working on the preliminary designs for construction of universal and barrier-free washroom facilities at the City Hall, Button Factory, and spaces at Albert McCormick Community Center. Next slide, please. A couple of photos, Rim Park and at the Harper Library branch. Next slide. The labeling system that we added to WMRC. Next slide, please. And then the autonomous universal washroom that's coming to the Heritage Green. Next slide. So the overall work plan for facility accessibility, we came in the early part of 2023 to talk about the assessments that have been done to facilities through auditing, both with a consultant and through members of the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee. We assembled a detailed inventory of the improvements needed across those facilities. And now we're into the highlighted section where we are seeking increased funding to be able to move ahead with some of those improvements. We are in current development of consistent facility accessibility design standards, and we're doing that in conjunction with the City of Kitchener, the Township of Wilmot, Woolwich, and Wellesley. And the hope there is to have a booklet that is readily available to staff that are making changes in facilities, but also to be able to provide it to anyone who gets a tender and is doing work in city facilities to make sure that we have a set standard. So not just where the door opener is located or the soap dispenser, but what level of lighting is accessible for most folks in the community, what we're looking for in terms of improving sound, that kind of thing. We've also been working on creating a matrix to set prioritization of the inventory of improvements needed across facilities. That's currently in development, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. We are in discussion with the asset management team about adding accessibility to the decision support system, which is a really great improvement to make sure that it's captured there and in an ongoing cycle of consistency. And then finally, we're working on convening an interdepartmental team alongside GRAC to confirm the accessibility facility upgrades, short and long-term work plans over the next 10 years. So we'll be using that matrix and the work in the DSS and integrating that all together. Next slide, please. I will turn it over to Swati.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a recap on what has been completed in 2021, 2022. In 2021 and 2022, designable environments, the consultants and GRAC audited 17 facilities across the city to assess the state of accessibility and identified the improvements needed to meet the basic minimum accessibility requirements into 4 priorities. The priority 1 identifies required minimum improvements that needs just the low to minimal cost. Priority 2, which identifies the improvements with low to minimum cost and retrofit. Priority 3 and 4 identifies the improvements with higher cost and the larger projects. To meet these accessibility standards across the city, all the improvements were estimated to be of 20 million worth of across all the priorities. Next slide, please. Staff from the accessibility report, staff reviewed the highest priority elements and estimated the need of $10 million, $10.5 million over the next couple of years to address all the improvements. These highest priority elements include the parking, life safety, exterior routes, stairs and ramps, entrances and exits, doors, interior routes, stairs and ramps, signage, wayfinding, and multi-stalled washrooms, change rooms, and universal washrooms. In 2023 budget, $2.95 million has been approved over the next span of 10 years for the AODA upgrades across all the facilities, and a new position as a new permanent construction supervisor to help us to carry out this retrofits. Staff also requests priority allocation for $6.8 million in staff table 2024 to 2026 capital budget and 2027 to 2033 capital forecast pending council approval. As Amy mentioned before, staff has engaged a consultant to adopt City of London standard guidelines and including the GREC committee members' feedback to develop a city standards for future renovation and new construction projects. This standard guideline graphically illustrates the requirement, not just the minimum, but the optimum requirement as well, which will help the consultants and the contractors to achieve the city's goal to meet the new accessibility standards. These are some of the examples that will be included in the drawings. Priority metrics. So staff, from the accessibility reports, all the improvements that's needed, staff has taken into the consideration and developing a priority metrics model, which will prioritize all the tasks based on the listed criteria, where types of facility criteria, where the facility which welcomes the community members on a larger number every day on a day-to-day basis will get the higher ranking compared to the facilities which will have which will be assessed by less number of the people. Elements involved, so the highest priority elements like parking, universal washrooms, life safety components, that will get a higher priority rank compared to the other upgrades and elements. Number of complaints received. If the number of complaints, the priority metrics will give the score based on the number of complaints. Higher the number of complaints will get the higher score. Estimated cost and time. To address that work, how much time and how much funding will be required will also provide the priority ranking based on that. The shorter, like the work that can be completed in a very shorter period will be and has is within the budget that can be addressed right as soon as possible will get the higher ranking. Available grants and upcoming projects at a facility. If this any project is coming at the same facility in a short duration, staff will take it as an opportunity to tie up both the accessibility upgrade work with that project for better management and as a cost-saving purpose. So that will give a little bit higher score to the improvement work. Health and safety considerations. If this improvement needed, has a higher health and safety risk, it will get the highest rank among all the elements, and which will just put that work in the highest ranking among all the works. Same with the human rights, we'll get the work related to human rights will get the higher rank, and the risk associated with the delaying the work, which if there is a higher risk, if we in delaying the work, which can result in which will get the more ranks, and then the table showed in the table 1 from the report, page number 125, which gives the last column gives the total score, which sums up all the score at the end, and the highest score, which means the green color 400, that will be the highest priority list of the work, and which can team can look at like planning the work according to these priorities. Thank you. I will hand over to the Amy for the next slides. Thank you.
Is that the end of the presentation? We're over time. Just checking.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'll turn it over to council for questions. Councillor Hanmer?
Thank you, Chair Freeman, through you. Amy and Swati, thank you very much for that excellent report and update on where we're at with the accessibility review and the audits. A lot of work has happened since that audit was done, and it looks like we're making great strides and great progress. So thank you for you and the team for all the work. And I know that Kevin was also instrumentally involved in the pieces. From our conversation, you know what, my interest is around the priority matrix, and I think it's a great thing to be able to help us make some choices. And I was wondering, Amy, this question may be for Swati as well, just in terms of the matrix and the different elements that you're using, am I correct in understanding that you are weighting the different priorities, or the different elements of the matrix, I should say, to come up with the scores?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So with the weighting the priority elements and all the scores, we are just from our experience and then from the crack comments, we are prioritizing the elements according to the weight. So the higher number gets the higher score, and for the weightage, higher score equals to the higher weightage. Is that answers the question? So sorry.
I think so. I think we're saying the same thing. For example, if something, and I'll use one that you said, if it's a human rights issue that needs to be addressed, it has a higher weighting than perhaps the type of facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is. I know you're testing.
There is a combination. And for example, life and safety and human rights will have the highest rank ever. That will just identify that work. Identify that work in the very much difference with the types of facility or other elements. So it will just list out different.
Okay. And my second question, if I could, is again along the lines with the matrix. I just want to make sure I understood. As you were talking about the estimated cost and time and the available grants, there seemed to be almost a leaning toward, if there was a grant available, it will get a higher priority. And what might that do to what the true ranking is of the priorities?
Yeah, I can maybe address that question. So I think what Swati's correctly identified is we recognize that there's more work to do than funding available currently. And so what we're trying to do with the priority matrix is really to identify key drivers or considerations as part of an algorithm that we built to help us do that initial cut. But, and certainly grants is part of that. Albert McCormick is a great example of that. We do have a major project potentially happening there, and so that would be a great time, for example, to overhaul the washrooms and create a new universal washroom. And so we're looking at how do we leverage projects and grants and all of those factors, but at the end of the day, there is a certain amount of professional management discretion, and that's where a member from FDMS, from the READY team, and potentially others will also sit on a committee that will periodically review this and make sure that we're investing in the right areas.
In the right area. It's almost alluding to with that, and I'll use the available grants again. If we've got a project underway, let's make sure we're doing everything we need to do. And then secondly, if there happens to be a grant that comes up, provincial or federal, can we use it to also leverage what we're doing? So great. I think you're doing some great work with it. It's excellent, and I'm very pleased to see how far we've come in a very short period of time. Thank you.
Chair, or Councillor Basak.
Thanks through you, Chair Freeman. Thanks for your presentation and all the work you've done. So my question is around thinking about the upcoming budget and how this construction supervisor or coordinator was one of 2 budget items, menu items that this council approved last year, and we're looking ahead to greater budget pressures this time. So thinking about some of the staff positions that have been asked for and the service level increases, and also in the menu item, and the value of them versus the pressures that we're facing to make to the tax impact, potential tax impact in a few weeks. So I guess what I'm curious about is what, had the construction supervisor not been approved, what might you have had to set aside in terms of facility upgrades and awareness, the physical structure, and also are there any things that you're doing, Amy, in your job that might have had to been put aside as well had that person not been hired? Can you just give us a better picture of that?
You can take the first part.
Sure, thanks for that question. I'll start, and Amy, if there's anything else, feel free to jump in. But I think, as you correctly note, the construction coordinator was a menu position in 2023 that was approved. And I think what I have seen from my perspective is there's been incredible value brought from that position, not just within accessibility, but more broadly within the work we do at facilities. But speaking just on the accessibility piece, I think one of the key advantages is there's really a need to look at the details in a lot of this type of work. And a great example is like Amy had talked about with the accessible push buttons. We learned through some of our major capital projects that a difference of an inch plus or minus on the placement of that button can really impact an end user's functional use of that feature. And so by having the construction coordinator actually on site when that button is being installed and being able to carry that knowledge forward from that project to the next project, and really, you know, there's incredible value in that from our perspective in terms of consistency, because if that's not done, we're often having to redo it, and that's not something we want to be doing. The other thing I will say is I think that we've already started to see the benefits of this individual and this program more broadly within the community. And I know that Amy and this individual have, you know, for example, gone to the college, Conestoga College as an example, to participate in some of the work that they do there from an educational standpoint. And I think there's lots of opportunity to educate some of the trades that do come and work on city facilities through this position as well. So I think lots of benefits, but just a couple maybe to highlight today.
It's a critical position. I can't go out to the buildings as often as would be needed to offer the advice that is offered by the construction coordinator. And quite literally, we can get a complaint like we did about the door opener at Rim Park, and we were able to enact that in less than 6 weeks. And it was installed and ready to go and followed through with the individual that had the concern, and now they can go and watch their partner skate without the fear of being stuck in a space where maybe no one can acknowledge that they're there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That's even more impact than I thought it would have had, and I think that's really interesting too, Kevin, like about the idea that it's not just people who are using services at the city, that it's a much broader community impact. So like the return on investment is just astronomical, and we'll kind of never know how much. So anyways, we made a good decision last year. Thank you. And well done advocating for it.
Any other questions, council? Seeing none, we have a recommendation. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. We're on to staff report 7B, supporting neighborhood-led initiatives. The report's in your package, council. I don't think there's a presentation. Any questions on the document in the packet? Is there a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Roach. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Sorry. Did you have a presentation? I was told that you didn't. Okay. Okay, great. Oh, sorry, the mayor says she has a question. Oh, I asked.
Sorry, you were going really fast.
I didn't see any hands go up. I apologize.
Councillor Freeman on the freeway.
Sorry. My brother's known as Wrong Way Freeman, so maybe
It's catching on.
So go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Okay, I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair, I just wanted to ask whether there is an opportunity for us to increase our liaison with our post-secondary students from a neighborhood strategy perspective. And so there's a couple of things that have been identified you know, in conversations with Laurier students in particular. There's sometimes a feeling that you know, they're transient in a neighborhood because they're not there for a long period of time, especially in off-campus housing. There are relationships with McGregor-Albert Neighborhood Association and the Uptown North Neighborhood Association. We've actually relied on Laurier students as volunteers for some community initiatives in the past. And we're just wondering where the opportunity might be for something a little more formalized, possibly in the Block Connector program, or even to actually get volunteers into the neighborhood, your team, because I'm sure it would be fantastic resume experience, just to increase those connections wherever we can, and acknowledging that there might be broader community benefits where students feel more at home in their neighborhoods.
Yeah, through you, Councillor or Chair Freeman, to Councillor Wright. The neighborhood strategy and the neighborhood strategy update document that was approved on the consent motion really speaks to a lot of the work that we want to do surrounding and integrating post-secondary students within the community. And that's definitely a key priority that's outlined in the neighborhood strategy. And so particularly related to the Block Connector program, that specific program is a great opportunity for students and other post-secondary representatives to get involved in that program and to start creating neighborhood connections within the neighborhood that they call home. That might be the building that they live in, that might be the block they're on, or that might be the broader kind of neighborhood geographic area. So that's one particular program that our team is committed to kind of leveraging to ensure that students have the opportunity to participate in that. Our team also regularly works with representatives from Wilfrid Laurier University, UW, and Conestoga College to lead some awesome integration events. So you'll be familiar with Waterloo Fest that happens on an annual basis. So our team, as well as municipal enforcement and some other teams at the city, work to bring students into the core, integrate them into what's going on, showcase volunteer opportunities, community organizations, and all the great stuff that Waterloo has to offer. And then beyond that, there's a number of other of our programs that students can take advantage of as well to build connection in their community, like our neighborhood grants programs and things like that. And I know you mentioned McGregor-Albert Community Association Uptown North too. We have direct relationships with those organizations through the affiliation process, and so we attend their meetings regularly, and they're often exploring ways to bring neighbors, students in as neighbors through their events and barbecues and things like that. So we work with them to help students feel more at home in that way too. So those are some things that we're looking at, and there's always ways that we can continue to advance our programs to better reach post-secondary students.
Thank you so much for that. And then I'm especially curious about the growth and opportunities with Conestoga College as well, because I've seen in my own neighborhood directly an increase in Conestoga College students living adjacent to our neighborhood associations, and definitely want to make some inroads there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned through you, Chair Freeman, through our Waterloo Fest planning and some of those other initiatives, we're bringing kind of Conestoga to the table. We've noticed that a lot of folks that go to Conestoga, even in downtown Kitchener, are coming to the events and things in Waterloo and are even living in Waterloo because of that student kind of connection piece that comes with the other post-secondary offerings in the area. So we're committed to working with Conestoga College and building that relationship to better support neighbors that come from that school.
Thank you for that detail. It's especially helpful because I'm meeting with Laurier students on Friday, so I can bring that with me. Thank you.
Mayor McCabe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Haley and Amy and Julie. It's a
it's really great to read these kind of reports, and you can really feel, you know, just through the description of what you're doing, how impactful it is in the community, and I know in our neighborhood we've taken advantage. You know, pre-COVID, or as soon as these grants started coming out, it was just before COVID hit. We took advantage of some of these $300 grants, and they really made a huge difference. So I just think it's a great initiative. But I'm just the questions I was wondering about is for some of our equity deserving groups. How are they supported in terms of where ESL may be a challenge? And then I'm also just wondering about, you know, in some areas where there's lower socioeconomic income, you know, $300 is great, but like I know in our community when we've done some events, neighbors chip in other things, right? So I'm just wondering how we work with some of the communities that maybe don't have the ability to kind of chip in to make the $300 go even further. So has there been some consideration along those lines for some neighborhoods that are maybe more lower socioeconomic neighborhoods?
Yeah, I can start that question off, and then Julie might want to come up and add some additional detail. But in terms of supporting inclusivity and connections and a sense of belonging in neighborhoods, we've developed a supporting inclusive community guide in partnership with the READY team that outlines general kind of tips and tricks for how to bring everybody into the fold at events and activities and projects. So that particular resource is really helpful as it outlines things like, you know, considering translation, considering offering childcare, having your meetings or events at different times that are more conducive with other people's schedules. So that particular resource is really helpful for neighbors to have kind of the information they need at their fingertips to plan inclusive activities. And then in terms of offering kind of grants to help support that inclusion within their communities, we do offer that $300 mini grant that you spoke to, but we also offer the $7,500 neighborhood grant as well that groups can access. And then we do have some targeted connections with different neighborhoods like the Sunnydale neighborhood and Herb West neighborhood that we spoke to earlier. Jim mentioned with our partnerships with Camino and House of Friendship, where they're getting specialized funding as well to deliver in priority neighborhoods. But I don't know if Julie wants to speak to anything else on that.
I think Haley covered most of it, but I would just also highlight the partner piece that she noted there, that partner organizations are assisting us with that. So for example, in the Herb West community, Camino is under an affiliation agreement with us. And so they have community outreach in that community. And so that's part of that added partnership piece that she spoke to.
Great, thank you very much. And the other question I had was, I also had the question about the post-secondary, how we involve post-secondary institutions. So thanks for asking that, and thanks for that information. That's really helpful. I think they're really important to kind of keep pulling in and keep them connected while they're here, and hopefully to convince them to stay. But I'm just wondering, do you kind of do we right now know of any neighborhoods where there's low participation, and do you go out and sort of try to find volunteers, or how do you manage things like that?
Yeah, so through you, Chair Freeman, to the Mayor, a lot of the work that's outlined in the neighborhood strategy that our team supports is very much resident-led. So we're looking to the community to kind of come to us with programs and activities and project ideas, and then we can help support them through next steps. But one particular program that's kind of on the horizons for this year is our neighborhood naming program. And so we're recognizing that there's pockets of the City of Waterloo that don't have an established neighborhood name, an established group, or block connectors that are active. And so we're actually planning some kind of pop-up events throughout the summer to connect with neighbors within those 5 priority neighborhoods, to share information about our resources, encourage kind of folks to be motivated and to take action and know what supports and resources are out there. So that's one particular program where we're pinpointing specific neighborhoods that don't have that same you know, they don't have a neighborhood name, maybe they don't feel that sense of identity and connection or connection to our programs. And so we're doing some targeted outreach to connect with those neighbors specifically.
Oh, great, thank you. And I mean, I know I don't have a specific word, but I don't know if council is interested, maybe you could connect with council on, you know, potential opportunities when you're going into different neighborhoods so they can provide some assistance or pass on potentially, you know, some of the key contacts or anything like that. But I'd certainly be interested in supporting that any way I can as well, because I just think it's really, really incredibly important work. So thank you very much.
Other questions, council? Thank you. The recommendation was passed unanimously. And I appreciate all the work that your team does. I don't know whether it's, I just wanted to share a small success. There was a neighborhood connector in my ward, and they worked with the folks at Shamrock Co-op, and city staff really helped too. And just a lot of conversations happened with the Loblaws group, kind of from all fronts. And they've reopened the one entrance of the Zares to actually create accessibility to that holding for individuals that use accessibility devices. And it had been closed since COVID. And literally, individuals from the Shamrock Co-op were told that they could access the holding through the mall. But a lot of times, Zares is open when the mall's not. And they literally had to drive or operate their accessibility devices on the roadway to get to the other side of the entrance. And it was really amazing, like how that all came together. And letters were written, conversations were had. The No Frills opened at a perfect time for me to have a conversation with the vice president. So there was a lot of good things that happened, but that really came out of the neighborhood connections and forging relationships in that area. So one of many stories, I'm sure. Thank you for what you do. The next item up is the Rim Park Skate Park. And council, there's a recommendation in the package. Is there questions? Yeah. So I'm not sure who's receiving questions on the staff side on this one. But Mayor McCabe has a question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, through you, Chair. I know this was like the consultation for the various skate parks happened, I think it was in 2019, and there was an extensive consultation, which is great. I'm just curious if there is room in this area, and I'm not saying stop the skate park or anything like that, because there's been all kinds of consultation in that, but I'm just wondering if there's room out in that area at all to add like basketball courts or something. I'm just thinking of some of the some sports that are a little more accessible for some people, and if that were contemplated, or if there's an ability to do that. I understand there's probably an additional cost, but I am a little surprised that, you know, I mean, I guess like the kids and the youth said they wanted skate parks, but which are fine, but you know, basketball courts and things like that are just pretty accessible for a lot of people at a pretty low cost for the individuals to utilize. So I was just wondering if you could kind of explain some of the thinking that went into that.
Through the chair to you, Mayor McCabe. So the skate park was actually purpose designed for that specific site. So it's actually fit quite tightly in alignment with the Stone Dust Trail that connects from the entrance kind of over to Millennial Drive there. And it is restricted by some elevation. So you'll be familiar probably with the big oak tree that's kind of there, and there's the tree well that protects the the oak, and so that borders one side of it, the trail borders the other, and then it drops off to kind of a wet area. So it is very specifically designed for that site. Having said that, with, through direction to council or just staff looking, we can look at the site in general, the Rim Park site, for an alternative location for a multi-purpose court. But I think that specific site has some constraints that really at this point I think are just allowing for that skate park. It was designed specific, even the shape of it follows the contour of the trail and the drop off for the tree well there. Yeah.
I think that Commissioner Dykstra just wanted to add to that answer, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes, through the chair to council, just adding to what Director Milne noted about looking at the Rim Park site in entirety. With this initiative going forward, speaking to Director Fleming, as well as I haven't updated Director Milne yet, but yeah, desire just to look at some master planning around the rest of the available parcels at the Rim Park facility. So more to come on that. So if we can note that as an item, but it's on our work plan just to look at future initiatives. I also note like the link and leverage to the parkland strategy and how these type of additional recreation amenities fit in. So I note at this time, I think we do hear the comments back from you, Mayor and Council, on that, but some work on that site is going to happen. So I just wanted to note that as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I guess partly as I'm also just curious if, maybe not like I understand there's costs involved in that, but so it doesn't maybe have to be a fully, designed court, but could be even just nets, right? I mean, like basketball nets or something like that, that's again, just relatively quick to put up that I think, communities use pretty heavily in a lot of places.
Yeah, and if I can add on, and that's with our programming team, again, with all the directors on the recreation side, taking a comment like this, how can they facilitate that on an ice pad that doesn't have ice in it, outside perhaps in an associated space? So hearing that within the programming initiatives that we have across the board, these are the type of things that we can look at. Thanks.
Any other questions on this piece? Seeing none, there's a recommendation, Council. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Consideration of a notice of motion given at previous meeting. There isn't one. There's a notice of motion here for your consideration for next week, Council. I don't think I need to introduce it. We can deal with it next week. Communications and correspondence, there's none. Unfinished business, there's none. Any questions, Council? Seeing none. New business? Councillor Vasek?
I can wait longer next time if other people want to go first. I'm just so worried we'll pass by and then I'll miss my chance and be like, wait, I have one. Okay. Continuing on my trend from last week. I have 3 favorite things. 1 are third places, like coffee shops. 2 are random conversations with people who I will never see again, so will never have to commit to, but are very deep and meaningful. And 3 is live music. And so last Thursday, when my kids' activity was canceled, which was tragic, really, not a tragic reason, it was just tragic that it was canceled and he couldn't get his energy out at it, I decided to take him for coffee at Seven Shores, just like one of our favorite places to go to get coffee and treats. And there were these 3 guys there, these 3 people there, and they all had instruments. So I was like, oh, what are you doing with these instruments? And they said they had come from Edmonton, Montreal, and Edmonton, the concertmaster from the Edmonton Symphony, and then they were 2 freelance classical musicians, so one from Montreal and one from Halifax. They were playing some shows in Toronto last weekend, and they're all from Southwestern Ontario, and they were playing a benefit concert for the KW Symphony at the First United Church in Uptown. Very lovely people, and it happened to be that I was able to go, and because I have a lovely partner who, when I got home, I was like, I have to go. He was like, okay, because that's what he says to me when I get excited about things, and then he just takes over for the kids, and it's wonderful, and I'm very lucky. And it was just the most beautiful concert. It was a benefit concert for the KW Symphony players. There were probably, I would guess, 125 people there. Tickets were $35, $40 if you wanted to get a tax receipt. And it was all going to support the KW Symphony players as they have this sort of, hopefully, brief intermission in their performances. Anyways, that's what I did last Thursday. So kudos to everybody who's trying to fundraise for the KW Symphony players and the arts community in general right now in a really difficult context. My second event was at the Waterloo Public Library East Side branch, where I've talked about her before, about her name, Lindsay Ziervogel. She wrote a book called Dear Street, thank you. And she was there doing a reading, an activity, and there were tons of people there. And really interesting, just thinking about the Rim Park skate park, is that there was someone there who knew about the event, and they actually they usually go to the John M. Harper branch, because they come from the west side of the city, but found out about the event, and it was just sort of a nice, when you have little kids at home, it's nice to have some variety, so it was nice to have something across the city that she could take her kids to. And my kid 3D printed something for the first time, and all of the librarians were really helpful, and it was just a lovely day for the PD Day.
Any other new business, Councillor Wright?
I just want to remind everyone that Waterloo in Uptown is this coming weekend. So again, this is something that our staff is very involved in, and the public square will be fully programmed. At the same time, we also have the Uptown Comfort Food Crawl, which the BIA does in partnership with the food bank. Big fundraiser. It is so much fun. I was able to attend last year. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be in town on Saturday because I'm at the Ontario Libraries Association board member boot camp in Toronto with the Waterloo Public Library. So I really encourage all of you to step in where I cannot be this weekend. Thank you.
Other new business, council? See none. Enactment of bylaws. It's our favorite, Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried. Motion to adjourn, council. Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Wright. All those in favor? Thank you very much. That's carried unanimously.